Welcome, everybody, to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends. Today, we're going to be talking to Ken Roth, formerly of Human Rights Watch, and we're going to be talking about the International Criminal Court basically coming out and saying, Netanyahu, you're a war criminal. We're going to issue an arrest warrant for you. Very, very, very big deal. Of course, the U.S. was very hostile in our reaction to that, blowing up yet again this notion that we care about the rules-based international order and all that stuff.
Of course.
So I'm very curious to get his perspective on it. What I've seen consistently is that all of these human rights organizations, whether it be Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch or all of them, they've all come out and been like, this is insane and it's kind of a genocide and you got to stop, right? And then it used to be that liberal Democrats in office would sort of champion the Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International and stuff, but now there's a huge break between them.
Yes.
And they don't anymore. Now they have totally different perspectives where every liberal Democratic politician is like, well, we reject the false equivalence with Israel and Hamas.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, too, because none of them, Biden et al., none of them really defended Israel on the merits. It was all this false equivalence talking point and the, like, well, we don't think they have jurisdiction. But you didn't hear anyone like, Israel's not on the Democratic side. I'm sure Republicans said this. In fact, I think Nikki Haley, who we're going to talk about, said this. But Israel's not starving people. How dare you suggest that? It just tells you that, I mean, the State Department themselves issued a report that was like, they're probably doing more crimes, but we're just going to say that we don't really think they are. So anyway, it'll be interesting to hear what he thinks about it, the impact of it. And I don't know if you saw this, but there is some reporting to suggest the ICJ, which is the ICJ is for countries, the ICC is for individuals, that the ICJ may on Friday issue the requested injunction for an actual ceasefire. So we'll see.
It's so Game of Thrones-like, though, because the U.S. is basically saying to them, okay, stop them with your army. Oh, wait, you don't have an army.
Right.
Right? Like, that's kind of the U.S.'s posture, this might makes right stuff.
That's right.
And it feels very Game of Thronesy to me now that, like, the whole idea of rules-based international order and human rights and justice and world police and all those things, it's like that myth, and we knew it was a myth,
right?
But like now it is undeniably a myth, and there's something that's really dark about that we haven't evolved at all since like medieval times.
Yeah. On the other hand, the very fact of the ICC likely issuing arrest warrants against Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, like, I would not have thought that was possible a year ago. I would not have thought that was possible. So it's true that
I agree
obviously the institutions are hollow. We're hypocritical about them. That's all true. But I actually think the fact that they're likely to issue these arrest warrants gives them more legitimacy than perhaps they've ever had in terms of sort of moral consistency.
They're clearly trying to live the values of what they're supposed to be doing. They are. Like what's his name? Something Khan, the head of the ICC.
Karim Khan, I think.
What he's doing is very brave.
Yeah.
It's super brave. But also when it comes down to it, and I hate to say this, but it's a bluff. It's a bluff. It's like we're trying to scare you into just stop doing it.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
But if you don't want to stop doing it, if the U.S. doesn't make you stop doing it and you don't stop doing it, what do we do? Like, what's going to happen? It's going to fucking continue.
Yeah, that's right. So
it's so dark.
All interesting to get into with Ken, too, and what he thinks the impact and, if it's important or not.
Yeah, I'm actually very interested to hear what he thinks. But before we get to him, let's start with, I'm sure you saw this already, Nikki Haley has now come out, endorsed Trump, joined the list of legendary cucks. So let's run that video.
As a voter, I put my priorities on a president who's going to have the backs of our allies and hold our enemies to account, who would secure the border, no more excuses. A president who would support capitalism and freedom. A president who understands we need less debt, not more debt. Trump has not been perfect on these policies. I've made that clear many, many times. But Biden has been a catastrophe. So I will be voting for Trump. Having said that, I stand by what I said in my suspension speech. Trump would be smart to reach out to the millions of people who voted for me and continue to support me and not assume that they're just going to be with him. And I genuinely hope he does that.
So I have a lot to say about this. But But before I do, I'm curious your thoughts.
I mean, so I grabbed Edward Isaac Dover, who I'm not a fan of, but whatever. He tweeted out a few of the things that Haley had said about Trump previously. She said, everything that he has done is total chaos. He's now saying things that don't make sense. I know the American people are not going to vote for a convicted criminal, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I basically think it's a craven calculation. She's been floated as a possibility for his cabinet. She sees more of a political future in, you know, bending the knee on that side than jumping over to the like never Trump lane and getting some kind of like maybe a media gig. Maybe she feels like the stable of the network stable of never Trumpers kind of already full. So this is the most fruitful path for her to go. And I just see it all. None of it's principled. It's just all about her own sort of like Machiavellian political power calculation.
Yeah. So I think she needed time to psychologically work herself into accepting this. Do you agree with that? That like she could have done it when she pulled out of the race, when she dropped out.
Yeah.
But she couldn't bring herself to do it because she had some remnants of pride.
I think it's partly that. I think she probably likes the conversation that's been ongoing about like, oh, voters are still voting for Nikki Haley, blah, blah, blah. I also think that you just kind of tactically need some time for some of those things that she said about Trump to fade a little bit in terms of memory. Trump just recently almost
I read it more the other way.
Extended an olive branch of saying like, I wish her well, you know, typical Trumpian, like, yeah, I wish her well. I have no problem with her. So I think there was enough distance from those prior comments that it was like, okay, now's the time to make my choice.
I read it the other way, that she was hurt by all the stuff he was saying during the campaign, and that's why she needed time. Like, almost like, fuck this guy, I hate him. And then it's like, she worked herself into doing this. But look, ultimately, I think the takeaway is very simple. She prioritizes the tax cuts for the billionaires and the corporations that he's going to do. She prioritizes the deregulation he's going to do. She prioritizes their shared group of donors who gives them money and makes them relevant.
Yeah.
She prioritizes her future in the Republican Party.
Right.
All these things are things that she prioritizes over any semblance of any principles at all. Because there was a moment there where she was kind of flirting with, like, maybe Biden's a little better? There was a hint of that there.
It's not that, I mean, if that's accurate, it's not that she doesn't have principles, it's that her principles suck. You know, if it's like, yeah, but he's going to do the tax cuts. I actually don't even know if it's about the policy. Like I said, I see it more in terms of cynical political calculation of just like, this is where I've got more of a future and more potential over here. And that's why she decided to, you know, suck it up and swallow her pride and pretend she never said the things that she said, pretended he never said the things he said about her. It is always amazing, though, listening to Nikki Haley talk. It's always incredible to me how obviously, like, I disagreed with like 99% of what Trump did in office, but she always has the like worst critique of him.
Yeah, like, oh.
He didn't do enough wars. We wanted more wars, and he didn't, you know, like go full fascist on the border.
He did
we need to do full
on
fascism.
China.
It's like
he did tariffs on China. Like, okay.
He negotiated with the Taliban. She'll pick the like, you know, 3 things that had some semblance of what. Anyway,
he talked to Kim Jong-un.
To me.
He talked to Kim Jong-un.
Right.
How are you picking out the only things where it's like, that makes sense?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
That's her gift. That's what she's able to do.
So I'll also say this, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. Like, trying to overthrow the election, the fake elector slate, fraudulent elector slate that Trump did, and all the stories about all the pressure and all the arm twisting and all the literal coup attempt to just try to stay in office. These people genuinely don't care about that at all, right? Like, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't care. And I just can't wrap my mind around, you're not allowed to take that position then also do the bullshit like suck America off stuff of like patriotism and freedom and the Constitution and our institutions. And you can't do that.
And she does.
And then also be like the guy who tried the coup. That's my boy.
Yeah, and she does.
Of course she
definitely
does. Of course she does.
She's all in on that, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's some number of Republicans at this point who are like, oh, the norms, like, I hate the deep state, et cetera, et cetera. Now, are they like actually divergent on any key issue? Not really usually, but at least rhetorically. They try to pretend like they're this screw the establishment type, but that's not Nikki Haley.
No.
Nikki Haley is like, I love the establishment. We need to be more establishment. Like, we need, you know, the norms and the institutions, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I think you have to say she doesn't really care. Or if she does care, she's keeping that to herself. And I think she found it probably very gauche. You know, she found it distasteful. But
But that's where it stops. That's where it ends.
That's where it stops.
It's like, that was rude.
Like I said, she, her critiques of Trump really never ventured into that direction.
Yeah. It's actually funny comparing her to somebody like Liz Cheney, because on paper they're like 100% in agreement on policy. But
True.
It seems like the attempt to overthrow the election was actually something that was a red line for Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
She's like, nope, can't do it. Nope. And that's wild to me that, they're exactly alike, but in that one way.
Liz Cheney has more integrity.
Found a shred of integrity. Although you could argue that her dad is Dick Cheney, George W. Bush, and Dick Cheney kind of did a slicker coup.
Yeah, there's
right? They did a sly coup that actually worked.
But that's these people, though.
Right.
It's like, if you're going to do the coup, like, do it the right way with some decorum. Like,
rig the media and then have your governor be have your brother be the governor of Florida.
That's the right
and then
way
have
to
the
do
Supreme Court do it the right way.
These like hooligans showing up at the Capitol. This, riffraff.
Disgusting.
This is beneath our dignity. Yeah, I think her sensibility was offended. This wasn't the right way to do a coup.
Yeah, that's fair.